I often stretch my papers before I paint because I want to keep them flat. I usually use a lot of paint and pigment and water, and I need that to flow smoothly across the surface. This also prevents the paper from buckling. The stuff I use is paper from Saunders Waterford of different qualities. 300 grams per square meter, doesn't matter if it's hot pressed or cold pressed, I use both. And then I have this plywood board and this gummed paper tape. If you're Swedish, it's called klisterremsa. I like the brown one. I've tried the white one, it doesn't work. I use it for my windows. If you live in a hut, you know what I mean. The winter taping. I also tried thinner tape, that doesn't work either. I need this one. This is, I think, 5 centimeters or something wide. I also use clean water and then a clean towel. First thing we have to do is remove the previous painting. This tape is not removable, so I have to cut out the painting or a sketch or whatever I made last time. So I use some kind of knife. And this particular painting I don't want to save, so it doesn't matter. I could use a ruler if this is something I want to frame and sell, but this one was just me playing with some colors. Now, when you use high quality cotton paper, watercolor paper, you can use both sides of the paper. So this one I am going to use. I could stretch it again, which I do sometimes, but this one I think I would use just to paint something on the backside. If I reuse it and stretch it again, I may get some paint on the surface. Now the residues, I just rip them off. There is some tape left, it's fine, it's okay. Sometimes I apply water to this and I use a knife to get rid of all of it, but it's fine, it doesn't matter, it can sit there. This is the paper I'm going to use. It's my favorite brand, Saunders Waterford. And in this package I have different qualities. I use both hot pressed and cold pressed and different weights. But if when I'm stretching the paper, I use 300 grams per square meter. It's fine. Let's see what we have here. I think this one is a good size. If it wasn't a good size, if I need to cut it, I don't use scissors because it hurts my hands. I use a metal ruler or this dough scraper. I just add some pressure and there we go. Nice edges. I actually think this is 425 grams per square meter, so it's thicker, but I'm going to stretch it anyway. There is a watermark on the paper so that you can tell which is the front and what is the back. You can paint on both sides. In this case I wanted the front because I wanted the painting to be very delicate and perfect. But since I cut this paper, there is no watermark, so I don't know which is the front, but I believe it's this one, so I just use it. So we're going to wet the paper through. I have some clean water there and I just spray the back side. And then apply a generous amount of water to the front side. So I will let this paper soak for a few minutes. I want the water to go into the fibers, the cotton fibers of the paper. What happens is the water will make the paper swell. It will get larger bigger, expand. So it will get larger, and then when you paint on it, it's all fine, but then when it dries again, that's when it gets buckled. So we will soak this in water, it will expand. We will tape it to this board while it is still wet and as large as possible, so that when I have the tape on and then it dries, it will get stretched like a drum, very stretched and lie flat. It will stay flat until it's dry, until the painting is finished. Also, what this does is that my brush strokes evens out the sizing on the paper, because it's not only cotton fibers in this paper, it's also gelatin. Most often is gelatin. It could also be some other kind of glue, but the gelatin is on the surface and inside the paper, and that helps the paint, makes the colors bright. It also gives us time to, now I'm just brushing because I'm talking at the same time. Normally I was done like half a minute ago. So the sizing is there because when you apply the paint, it makes sure the paint stays where you put it, but also it gives you time to manipulate the painting. So if there was no gelatin and I had painted this paper, it would sink straight into the paper, and I can't do anything with it. It just sits there, it's stuck. So that's what you experience with cheaper paper. But when we have a sizing on, I can apply the paint, and the painting will stay on top of the paper for just short moments, a few seconds, so that you have time to move around the paint and do whatever you want before it sinks in and then dries. So the quality of the paper is it's very important for the painting, especially if you do techniques similar to mine, where you use a lot of water, a lot of paint. You need this high quality paper. If you want to make a painting with a lot of flow, a lot of paint, water and pigment, you need a high quality paper. It's almost impossible to do this with a cheap cellulose paper. And the most common feedback I give to my students is, your paper is bad. You need a higher quality paper. So they send me pictures of what they painted, and they discover they can't do the technique that I show them, and then they ask me, what did I do wrong? And I can see straight away, you didn't do anything wrong. It's paper. Buy a better paper, and then it solves the problem in most cases. But if you like to paint stuff like this, you don't need the same quality of paper, because here you paint on a dry surface. These delicate brush strokes on a dry surface, it's very controlled. Then you don't need as much help from the paper. So there you can go on a budget. Okay, so this paper has been soaking for a few minutes now. I wet the edges again because they dry out first. And I will get a towel. I use a clean linen towel just to get rid of the excess water. I recently moved to this new studio because I moved in with my boyfriend, and unfortunately I had to leave my cats behind, so they live with my parents now, but they are still with me. There are hairs everywhere. I think most artists know this feeling, cats are everywhere. So, paper is still wet, it is large, it is soft. So now we add the tape. This is the paper tape I'm using. It's a gum tape. If you're Swedish, it's called klisterremsa. So it has this water-soluble glue on one side. Don't get water on this, because it will be a glue clump of glue. So I just take pieces to match the size of the paper. And then we start with the longer sides. This board is made out of plywood, if I didn't tell you that. And then I have this clean water. Just dip it in there. And I make sure the tape covers half of the paper. I've seen that some artists use masking tape for this. I have never succeeded with masking tape. I need this paper tape because it's super strong. Because when the paper dries, it becomes super strong and it wants to shrink back again. And that's when the tape has to be really, really tight to hold the paper so that it stays flat. Because if it shrinks and rip the tape, you will get a buckled paper and the process is just wasted. So use a towel and pressure from the middle and out. I add quite a lot of pressure. I also make sure there is not any excess water. Squeeze it out. And then the shorter sides. From the middle out to the corners, pressure. So now, before I start painting this, I let the surface dry. I can save this for probably as long as I want to. I can paint on this in an hour or in a year, it doesn't matter. So I usually prepare at least 5 or 6 papers so that I have them prepared. Good luck! Thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more content, please subscribe and ask your questions in the comments. You can wait until the surface dries and then start painting directly on it. What that does is that inside the paper there is still moisture, so that you will have more time to paint wet on wet if you would like that, so that the drying time is slower because of the moisture inside the paper. So there is a tiny difference if you let this dry completely and paint on it, or if you just let it dry on the surface and paint on it with still a bit of moisture inside the paper. The colors will be a little bit brighter if you use the second technique, where it's not completely dry, just the surface is dry. So you could try that out, see if you can notice any difference. I don't really care about it. I usually let this dry until the next day before I start painting on it.